5 reasons Adnan Syed might be innocent. Hae Min Lee was a Korean-American high school student who was last seen alive in Baltimore County, Maryland, on January 13, 1999. Her corpse was discovered 4 weeks later in Leakin Park. She had been murdered by manual strangulation. Adnan Syed, Lee's ex-boyfriend, was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. The podcast Serial chronicled Hae Min Lee's murder in 2014, bringing increased attention to the case. Judge Martin P. Welsh overturned Syed's conviction and ordered a fresh trial in 2016. The Maryland Court of Special Appeals maintained the ruling in 2018, but the Maryland Court of Appeals reversed it in 2019. Welcome to Bad Things. In this video, we look at why Adnan Syed might be innocent of Hae Min Lee's murder. 5 reasons why Adnan Syed might be innocent. Number 1. Asia McClain. Asia McClain's life would be irrevocably changed after a chance encounter in a library, and she would eventually become involved in one of the most controversial cases of our time. Asia McClain stated in 1999 that she had seen Syed in the library on the day that prosecutors said he had killed his ex-girlfriend, Lee. McClain was never asked to testify during the trial, even though she had shared this knowledge with Syed, his family, and his attorney at the time, Christina Gutierrez. McClain did not realize the significance of the final time she saw Syed until the case against him started. Adnan and I weren't really close friends, but we had a ton of mutual friends, and so when someone gets arrested, you start to think of, what's the last time that I saw this person? And then you start to think of when's the last conversation that I had with them. And it popped into my head like, I remember that day. I saw him in the library, McClain said. Even more strangely, McClain claimed that the topic of conversation was Lee, Syed's ex-girlfriend, who would later be found dead, buried in a shallow grave. Syed had confided in her that Lee had begun seeing another man, referring to Don Kleindienst, an older co-worker with whom Lee began dating, either during or after her relationship with Syed ended. McClain said that she was sorry for prying, but that Syed brushed it off and told her, "I just want her to be happy," in response to her questioning. McClain started to connect the dots and realized that at the time Syed was supposed to have committed the murder, he was with her. She chose to inform Syed's family about their short encounter at the prompting of her ex-boyfriend, but when she went to their home and notified them, she sensed that they did not perceive much value in it, since it was just a 15 to 20 minute period of time. Undaunted, McClain drafted a letter to Syed, informing him of her sudden realization in case his family didn't. She also said that she did not go to the police since she did not trust them at the time. An unremarkable conversation between two acquaintances would eventually become a crucial piece of evidence in Syed's case. Because no one connected to the case followed up with McClain, she was not called to testify, and she would only testify in February 2016, during which a judge would decide if the absence of McClain's testimony during the 2000 trial was sufficient evidence that Syed had ineffective counsel during his initial trial, and was therefore entitled to a new trial. Asian McClain is a bona fide alibi for Syed when it comes to the timeline that the prosecution put forward in his case. Number 2. Jay Wilds. Almost the entirety of the prosecution's case to convict Syed of Lee's murder rested on the evidence of a single witness, Jay Wilds. Syed's acquaintance admitted to helping Syed bury Lee's corpse, despite initially denying any involvement in the murder. He was not incarcerated. In exchange for his testimony, Wilds was offered probation instead of prison time for his role in the crime. Even while Syed's jury seemed to have placed a great deal of credence in Wilds' testimony, Wilds was not precisely truthful, and even a minimal amount of probing may have exposed his lies. Wilds also admitted to being Syed's co-conspirator, complicating his position as the prosecution's lone witness. The Baltimore police, after receiving an anonymous tip about Lee's ex-boyfriend, were already centering their investigation on Syed. They were provided access to Syed's mobile phone data and investigated Jay Wilds, who received calls from Syed's phone. When the police started interrogating Wilds is a matter of contention. Did officials coach him before he was formally interviewed? The official interviews between Wilds and the police reveal some peculiar audible hints as to why the police would lie about the date Wilds was first questioned. Whenever Wilds is unable to recollect a detail or hesitate for an extended period before responding to a question, a succession of taps can be heard, following which he always answers the question correctly. Occasionally he apologizes as if he had been instructed to say something and had forgotten. In addition, Wilds' employer at the time said that Wilds had to leave work many times before the formal interview to speak with the police. Some have concluded that the tapping on the tape may have been the sound of someone writing quickly on a hard surface, or a physical indication that Wilds needed to provide the correct response soon. No one is certain of their nature, but the timing of the taps on the video seems odd. Number 3. The mobile phone proof. The credibility of the cell phone evidence was first questioned as a result of podcasts related to the case. Through the efforts of attorneys Susan Simpson and Colin Miller, Syed's subpoenaed subscriber activity report had an instruction from the provider saying that incoming calls are not trustworthy for detecting location. Incoming calls were utilized to pinpoint Syed in Leakin Park at the time when Jay Wilds testified that they were burying Lee's corpse. During his trial testimony, the state's cell tower expert was unaware of these instructions until they were not brought to his attention in 2015, after which he prepared an affidavit for Syed's defense attorney, effectively retracting his trial evidence. Kevin Urich, the prosecutor from Syed's 2000 trial, said in an interview that neither the Wilds testimony nor the cell phone evidence would have been sufficient to establish Syed's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The outgoing cell tower pings were correct, but they do not connect Syed to Lee's murder, unless the state attempts to establish an entirely alternative time frame for the crime, which would require its star witness, Jay Wilds, to contradict his statement. Number 4. DNA evidence. In 2019, attorney C. Justin Brown, who was representing Syed, wrote on Twitter, recovered evidence in #Adnan Syed case was tested for DNA in the fall of 2018 and nothing was matched to Syed. There is no forensic evidence linking him to this crime. A dozen objects, including fingernail clippings, blood samples, a bottle of whiskey and a condom wrapper, were examined by prosecutors. None tested positive for Syed's DNA. A court in Baltimore issued an order for more DNA testing of evidence in the murder case against Adnan Syed in March 2022. This came after both Adnan Syed's attorney and the prosecution in Baltimore approved extra testing. Number 5. Ronald Lee Moore. Could there be another suspect in the murder of Hae Min Lee? The serial killer Ronald Lee Moore was not a suspect in the case until 2014. The murderer had been released from jail 10 days before Lee's death. Moore was in Baltimore at the time of the murder and resided about 10 minutes away from the scene. Another Korean woman was killed in Baltimore exactly 11 months after Lee's killing. Annalise Yang Suk Lee's body was discovered in the bedroom of her flat. The coroner determined that blunt force injuries and strangulation contributed to the victim's death. In 2012, Ronald Lee Moore committed suicide while he was incarcerated for unrelated charges to either of the murders. After a DNA test conducted in December 2013, he was positively identified as the person who had murdered Annalise Yang Suk Lee. 2 hairs were recovered from Lee's body, and both Adnan and Lee's hairs were examined and found not to be from either of them. There is a possibility that these hairs belong to Lee's killer. Adnan Masood Syed has been in prison for 22 years for the murder of Hae Min Lee on the scant evidence of an unreliable witness, inaccurate cell phone records, and no DNA evidence linking him to the crime. Maybe the new round of DNA testing ordered by the court will finally put this case to rest. Thank you for watching Bad Things. Hit the subscribe button, like button and notification bell, and share our channel for our up-and-coming true crime videos.